surplus that we're projecting by year end, what's driving it is export growth and import curtailment, import substitution, the two working together. So export growth from the manufacturing sector, in the mining sector in the main, including our tobacco in the agricultural sector, and cotton, are driving export growth, and that those numbers are up. But we're seeing that the growth of imports, also because of the domestic currency and import substitution in the mining sector, the import growth has slowed down, relatively speaking, resulting. But there's a third factor, which is the capital inflows from the diaspora. Those have increased, as I said, by 33%. All that should result in a current account surplus of about $1.2 billion. And we think this is even conservative. Then coming to other countries are shrinking, they're taking on more debt. No, we are not shrinking. No. You know what, if you look at other countries, as a minister, I'm not supposed to mention other countries, but I'm going to. South Africa, US, UK, just those three. Companies are shutting down because of COVID, actually shutting down. But not in Zimbabwe. Since we said companies can reopen, they're not shutting down. I'm saying volumes are up or being maintained, or volumes are recovering. I'm not seeing a similar pattern in companies shutting down. So that's our prognosis, is that the impact of COVID overall on Zimbabwe is not as deep as in other countries. But this pattern I'm describing is very similar to other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, by the way. It's not only just unique to Zimbabwe. Outside South Africa, you're finding that, especially in East Africa, Rwanda, even Kenya and other countries, they have not been as severely impacted as is the larger countries such as South Africa, UK, US, and so forth. So it's a very similar pattern that you see in Zimbabwe as in other countries. These companies are solid, they're well run, and their volumes are recovering, if not even improving. And that's why I'm saying I'm even more bullish now about economic recovery than I was deep in the middle of COVID in the second quarter. But we're all gloomy at that moment, for example, because we had to shut down, we didn't know where it was going, and but I'm a lot more bullish now.
Well, for more on the Zimbabwean economic outlook, I'm now joined on the line from Harare by Zimbabwean Strategist and Economist Dr. Prosper Chitambara. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program. You've heard the Finance Minister. He's very upbeat and very positive about the economy going forward. Do you share his optimism?
When you look at most of the growth projections for this year from major international institutions like the World Bank, they're actually showing that the economy is going to shrink by probably around minus 10%. So I think the projections from government have been a bit overly optimistic. I think the reality of the situation is that I think there are significant structural challenges, structural and institutional challenges that we need to address before we can go back to an era of positive growth. And obviously that outlook has been affected quite adversely by the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, so what measures is he using? I mean, let's talk about the current account deficit. Does that help as a measure of the state of the economy?
Okay, so there are basically two main macroeconomic aggregates. You have the current account balance that you have mentioned, and also there is the fiscal balance. So yes, when you look at, for example, the fiscal position, we have attained a nominal fiscal surplus. But that has been attained on the back of, number one, significant cutbacks on critical social expenditures. Like when you look at our public expenditure towards health, our public expenditure towards water and sanitation, towards social protection, I think we are failing to meet regional and international benchmarks. In fact, we have seen over the past years And of course, that has also been exacerbated by the austerity framework of government. We've seen gross underfunding of these critical social sectors. We've also seen government obviously increasing taxes, so that's part of the macroeconomic thrust of austerity. So yes, we have seen a nominal surplus on the fiscal situation, but that has been on the back of huge cutbacks in public expenditure and also an increase in taxes. And because of the increase in taxes, what it has done is to increase the cost of doing business, and as a result, Zimbabwe has lost competitiveness. We've also seen an informalization of the economy. In fact, numbers from the International Monetary Fund actually revealed that Zimbabwe is the second highest informal economy in the world, accounting for around 60% of our GDP. And our own statistics from our statistic agency show that around 76% of our total employment is actually informally employed. And now when you go to the other position, which is the current account position, yes, there's also been a surplus, but that surplus has largely been on account of significant reductions in imports. There hasn't been much improvement on the export side. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Carry on.
Yeah, so there hasn't been much improvement on the export side, but there's been significant reduction of our imports. So I think that is also accounted for the surplus. But my view is that for this surplus to be real, to be felt by the ordinary person on the ground, it must actually result in an improvement in their welfare, in an improvement in their well-being. Now, when you look at the numbers in terms of our poverty numbers, extreme poverty, for example, the World Bank figures actually show that our extreme poverty, the proportion of people that are in extreme poverty has actually increased, and is projected to even increase more during this year of 2020. So maybe for want of a better word, I would call the surplus probably a mirage, in the sense that there's a huge disconnect between the situation of the ordinary person on the ground and the nominal numbers that we are receiving from official government statistics. Mm-hmm. When you look at the situation in the public health, the delivery system, the doctors are on strike, our hospitals don't have medicines and critical equipment. Even right now, the teachers, and now we are opening schools, but the teachers are on strike. So I think the situation in terms of the social sectors, in terms of the developmental sectors, they're actually showing a different picture. Yes, we need stability, but that stability has to be sustained for it to be felt, the ordinary person on the ground. We are also in chronic high inflationary environment. Yes, the numbers have gone down slightly, but we always created the official numbers because they are based on a shrinking formal economy. So development in the informal economy, which is now the economy in Zimbabwe, are actually not captured by the official inflation numbers. But those numbers actually show that we are in chronic high inflationary environment. So I think the situation it's still very, very precarious. And I think there is need for more institutional reforms, need for more structural reforms, need for political reforms also to address the politically toxic environment. Because I think that's also a major source of the huge country risk, or the high political risk premium that again affects our investment outlook and our economic sustainability going forward.
All right, so you talk about the informalization of the economy. Would that explain then the statement that the finance minister says that we don't see companies in Zimbabwe closing down? Is that because there's very few companies open?
I think that's because there are very, very few companies that are still formal. There are very few formal businesses. What we have experienced as a country over the past few years is wrenching structural changes typified by deindustrialization, obviously that informalization. So I think that's a major challenge, that most of our businesses are actually in the informal economy. And they are informal. Why? I think one reason why businesses also have opted to go formal or to remain formal is because of the high tax regime. So business don't want to formalize because of the high compliance costs of formalizing. And there's also the lack of competitiveness for many to remain or to go informal. And every year our colleges, our universities are churning out hundreds of thousands of school leavers, of graduates, and those are not being absorbed by that shrinking formal economy. So when you look at the key labor market challenge then becomes these huge levels of informal employment. Our unemployment figures are on the low side. Why? Because most of our people are actually eking out a living in the informal economy.
All right, Dr. Chitambara, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for your insights and making sense of what we're hearing. Thank you so much indeed. That was independent economist and strategist Dr. Prosper Chitambara saying, yes, accounting-wise, the numbers may look good in terms of a surplus in Zimbabwe, but the reality on the ground for the average citizen, perhaps not so good.